Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another client success interview. We have Brandon Mizell, who is someone I'm very, very excited to share his story because we had been DMing for probably 2 years before he joined PTBI. And, we got him into our takeover program. I think when he joined, he was making about 4K per month. We quickly scaled him up to 10 to 12K per month, where he has been consistently being able to generate that revenue. Super cool guy because he's so young. I'm stoked to work with someone who's so young, who's so passionate about being successful. So, Brandon, why don't you go ahead and give yourself a little bit of an intro, tell people where you're from, give a little backstory.
Yeah, cool. So Zach said we were able to scale from 4K to 12K. In February, I actually hit 13,000 and like
Nice.
$90. So my name's Brandon. I most notably go by Coach B on any social media nowadays. So basically, I live in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. There's casinos. It's like a budget version of Vegas. Yeah, I've lived down here my whole life. I come from a good upbringing to a point, but I really had to kind of learn life skills very young because at 13 or 14 years old, we went from having everything to almost losing everything because my dad had two brain surgeries. And yeah, so that forced me to really accept the fact that I need to make something of myself. Yeah, so there was a lot of stresses, a lot of anxieties. And once I realized that that was kind of the reality, I was a 98-pound, 5'2" freshman, and I have a rule: if you're gonna be short, you can't be skinny. You have to have something about, like, if you're gonna be short, you gotta have something about you, right? So luckily I'm short, but at least my arms look good nowadays. Yeah, I was bullied, I was picked on, and then fitness was like that thing, dude. I would go to the gym for 2 to 4 hours a day during my first summer. I ended up going from 98 pounds to 115 pounds. But not only that, the daily life of like coming home, I think it was really rough. Dad went from having this $50 to $70 an hour career job that he worked basically half of his life for nothing. And so it was kind of like a very depressing atmosphere. And so I found myself struggling with depression. And the only time that I didn't struggle with depression or insecurities was when I was in the gym. And so long story short, it felt like a lot of my life was fixed once I found the gym. And then I was working at Wendy's and I was like, that was my first job. And I realized I was like, this sucks.
Mhm.
So at 17, I went through another spout of depression, which was actually a lot worse. There was 6 months of my 17-year-old life that it was so bad that I don't really remember 6 months of my life at that period. It was also during that time where it was like so painful. And one thing that I tell my clients is like, if you sit in the pain long enough and you stop trying to run away, you'll be surprised what you can find out. And then I started creating a vision for where I wanted to be. And I asked myself, I was like, there's so much bad stuff going on. What would my life look like if I didn't have that bad stuff? Right. And then 2020 happened and we go lockdown. And at that point, I had an eating disorder. So I'd lost all the progress that I'd gained. And during lockdown, I was like, I'm going to be the best at lockdown. I'm going to be the best at like getting in the best shape during lockdown. I'm going to document it all on social media. And I knew I wanted to start a business and I'd already failed. By 17, I'd failed. I had made about $1,000 in like a 4-year span of time on social media from, so 3 years, 15 to 18, but it wasn't consistent enough to where I could do what I'm doing now. And then I went all in, but I was selling $150 packages. Every single person that I sold, not a single one followed the program. So it was like I would make $150, but I wouldn't keep it. And then I had to go back to work. And I got that taste of entrepreneurship where I could do what I want when I want. I had to go back to work. So I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. And then yeah, so from August 2020, I think it was August, September. So, and then my first month, I made $2,500. I quit my job 2 weeks later,
Wow.
after I started full time. Yeah, and then I did that for about 2 years, and then that's where I actually met you because I was making consistent between 4 and 8,000. And I remember January of it was 2022, I hit my first $10,000 month, and then the next month I made $4,300,
Wow.
and it went like that for a year straight. And I didn't hit $10,000 a month for 7 months after that. And that's after I hired you. And then after I hired you for the takeover program, you like actually taught me this, how you train your virtual assistant. So I think 3 months after that, I think I went 12,000, 10,000, 8,000, and it only went downwards because I had so many clients at that point. I didn't know how to take care of them. And then at that point I had a partner. And once I split with my partner, the first month of my own business, I hit 12,000, I hit 8,000, hit 13,000. So we're in April, and so far I have another 650 coming in, and I've signed 4 clients. And so I think so far this month we're at 4,000 already, and it's
Nice.
the fifth. So we're at $40,600 for 2023.
And
And
how old are you?
I'll actually be 21 in about 4 days. So I'm
Wow.
20. I'll be 21 in 4 days.
Nice, bro. That's incredible. Well, dude, I mean, you should come out to Vegas for my birthday, April 29th. That's we're celebrating my birthday. If you're gonna be 21, you should come through.
I know, bro. Living in this off-brand Vegas that I'm stuck in now. I gotta like go see the real things.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
off-brand shit, it's not cutting it, man.
So tell me, how did you discover entrepreneurship? Like where at what point in your journey did you decide, okay, I'm tired of, working at Wendy's or, I don't want to go work a 9 to 5 job. At what point did you discover entrepreneurship and decide that fitness coaching is what you wanted to do?
This is actually full circle, 100%. So when I was 15, I started working out, started posting on social media. It was the first thing that I had something, right? I didn't have any friends. I wasn't good at school. I was a DNF student, which luckily, because this worked out. But I wasn't good at anything. I didn't really have a social life. I didn't have friends. But that one thing that I did have was fitness.
Mhm.
And then of course you start seeing social media like influencers posting. You see they got credibility while I was in such an insecure place. I'm like, if I had a lot of followers, my life would change. Which by the way, it didn't. But in that pursuit, I built a network on social media of kids my age. And one of them was Noah Litz. And he tagged you, and that's how I met you. But I'd known him through social media. He tried to sell me a few times in one of his old business ventures.
Mhm.
So, well, if he is 15 years old or 16 years old making money trying to sell me, I could do that somewhere. And so then it was full circle. But yeah, seeing him specifically was like, and there were like 4 or 5 other people my age that were making like $500 to $1,000 from social media. And so then I was like, oh shit, they can do it. I can definitely do it. Like I got all the time in the world. And so it was just building that network around me that if they were my age and they did it, then I can get a piece of that. And then I remember being in class when I actually was like started selling something. And then I made like $300 in the middle of class. Like that's the thing. I was like, everybody else is scrolling Instagram. I'm making money from Instagram. And then that's ultimately where I set my sights, and here we are.
Love it, man. What were some of the things that you had to overcome in the beginning of your entrepreneur journey? Because obviously, I think we've talked about this before about being so young in the entrepreneur space. How can you compete? But yet here you are making 10K a month at 20 years old. So did you have to overcome any challenges due to, anything like that? Why don't you tell me about that?
Dude, it was such a hard journey. Age aside, I was such an insecure person, and so many people were like doubting me from the moment I said I was going to be an entrepreneur. And then being 20 years old on top of that, I remember one of my other mentors. So you're like the 4th or 5th person that I've worked with. I was on a Zoom call. It's like, dude, I'm so young. People aren't going to listen to me. I was like 18 or 19 at the time. So it wasn't too long ago. And one thing that he told me, and this is the reality of like the world, he was like, I know people who went in the army and got shot and they're younger than you. He goes, you're literally just selling people on how not to be fat. Like
Wow.
he told me that. I was like, bro, I was like, well, when you put it that way, I need to quit whining and I need to start just selling people. But he told me that. But another thing is I started struggling with the anxiety really bad, like social anxiety. Like that's the first thing I told you about when we had our call.
Mhm.
That's what I told you at the beginning of this call, because I was like, oh, my nerves are really bad. I used to think because I had anxiety and because I was nervous, I can't get on camera and I can't do interviews like this. But the reality is anxiety is kind of like an emotion, even though it affects you physically as well. One thing that I learned through the entrepreneurial journey is overwhelm, depression, anxiety, like these emotions, you can feel them, but you can also still move through them.
Mhm.
Like you see me on here, I don't look like I have anxiety, but I'm having ups and downs of it right now. But because I know that a lot of people need the value and this is going to help you and it's going to help me, like I'm going to go through it. I'm just going to go through with the actions because logically I'm not going to die on here. Like that's what I used to tell myself. And then whenever I was on sales calls, I'm not gonna die. I might not make a sell, but I'm not gonna die. It's cool.
Mhm.
So understanding that the negative emotions, you can feel them, but you just gotta move through them. The second thing, when it comes to being younger, is just understand it's scary until you do it a lot. Because understand, like getting on a phone call, I had a person right before here tell me no, but I had 2 people this week that I signed up, right? So it's like people are gonna tell you no, and don't be afraid just because of your age to get on a call. Because the reality is, if you can tell somebody to eat less and you can get them consistent with it, they're gonna get results, and ultimately their life is gonna change, right? And then the business kind of progresses from there. But then the third thing is something that we talked about on not our last call, but it was the one that we had on Takeover about the identity. That was like the most life-changing call, because little side story is I was such in like a weird place, because in one spot I knew I was going to be the person I am today, but then on another spot I was still reliant on my old business partner. And so I was like, by being reliant on him, I was still this depressed, like beat down kid who couldn't do anything on his own. But then the other side, like I said, is this 20 to 25-year-old, in that age bracket where I'm in my early 20s making $30,000, which is the goal. Not quite there yet, but I had this vision of who I wanted to be, but the old version of me was like still there. And then you straight up told me, I was like, dude, I feel like I'm going freaking insane, because 20% of the time I felt like a different person, which was the successful version. But whenever I hit a roadblock, I felt like a different person. Like I literally felt like I was going crazy. And I was like, you're like, dude, and I have the notes on my phone, and you were literally like, okay, well, figure out who you want to be, figure out your identity, and then invest into things that elevate that identity. And it's kind of like drowning out the negative version of yourself with the positive and faking it so much and faking it for so long until you're actually that person. If somebody tried to tell me, oh, Brandon, you're depressed, I'd be like, depressed? I might feel depressed, but I'm not depressed. Like I might get anxious, but I'm not anxious. I used to tell myself constantly, I struggle with anxiety. No, I get anxious sometimes, but it's not that big of a deal. I was totally different perspective back in the day because I was a different person when it comes to my identity. And so, yeah, I mean, you got to change your identity, but you also have to be, final thing is get out of your comfort zone. Whenever you first reached out to me, one of the most uncomfortable things was getting on a Zoom call, because I only do calls on my phone. So like Zoom calls, and I was struggling with massive anxiety, and you were like, yo, let's set up a Zoom call. And I was like, this dude's gonna try to sell me, and I can't say no to his face, but I already booked the call, so let's do it. Dude, I'm telling you, we had 3 days out, and I was so nervous about that Zoom call, because I was like, what if it's too much? But then you have to take risks and get out of your comfort zone, because I was like, okay, well, let's add up to how much I have. At that moment, I had, I think, 9.5K to my name. Wasn't signing a lot of clients. And I was like, all right, so if you ask for 10,000, I can't do it. But if you ask for 10,000 and I break it up, I can do it. Which you didn't. That's why the lay down sell, it was so easy, because I was like over exaggerated the investment amount, but I had already made the decision, no matter how much this is, I'm going to make it happen.
I love that.
And then within the 3 months, I think I 6 to 7x what I actually invested into you within a 3-month period. So you have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone and actually take the risk if you want to be something. Now, if you don't want to take risk, you just be okay with being average.
I love it, man. So what's next for you, man? What's on the goal for 2023? I'm sure you have a bunch of financial goals, but do you plan on traveling more? You're working for yourself. You're 20 years old. You didn't have to go to school. You don't have to work for anyone else. You don't have massive amounts of debt. So what's the dream that you want to build for yourself this year?
This year, so I'm looking up at my vision board. Initially, I wrote down I want 75 clients paying $400 a month, 30,000 a month consistently, and then 2 shadow coaches and 3 VAs. But I actually rethought that, right? Because when I first made that, I just did it for other people's expectations. But I was listening to a podcast, and it made me rethink the whole thing. So 2023, brutally honest coaching goals, which is my coaching, because I'm going to be brutally honest with my clients, right? Hit $10,000 a month, just 3 months in a row. That's very easy. We're almost there. Maintain 35 clients, 50% close rate, 6 to 8 calls a week. That's within the next 2 to 3 months. But within the next 6 months, I want to hit 20 to 25,000, because once I hit 10,000, if it was just me, I'd be able to do whatever I want. But because I have employees, I'm trying to scale. 25,000 would be the levels where I can do like whatever I want and not really have to work on the business, like in the business or on the business. I could actually work in the business and kind of help my employees scale. Relationship goals are like travel at least 3 more times. I've never traveled until I was 20 years old. And I've so far since I've turned 20, I've traveled 7 or 8 times. Me and my dad, then me and my old team twice. And then the rest, I'll just text my girlfriend and be like, hey, take these days off. We're going on a trip. So she doesn't really care where we go as long as I take her with me. So, and then for health goals, dude, I want to be 130 pounds lean and be happier and more grateful. I've had a lot of realizations recently to where I'll be driving to the gym and I built my dream life. But as entrepreneurs, especially anybody watching this who's trying to get to that next level, 90% of you guys, if you're doing this by yourself, you can already build your dream day. Yeah, I feel like recently I've just been focusing on building out what does my dream day look like based on my vision. And so that's wake up, meditate, stretch, go to the gym, then work for about 4 hours. So I'm already basically doing what I want, but what's to come is more traveling and then hitting 25K. After I hit 25K, who knows? I don't know. I feel like at that point, it's just a rinse and repeat cycle. Once I hit 25K, then it's like 25 to 50K. It's kind of the same thing, small pivots here and there. So once I hit 25K, then it's just going to be doing the same thing over and over and over again until we're at 100K months, until I'm like the micro Zach. Hopefully by the time Zach's going to be making $1 million a month by the time I hit $100,000 a month, but I'll be right behind you. All right.
Yeah,
So
I love it. I love it. Well, Brandon, where can people find you online?
BT Shreds, 2 Z's at the end of Shreds. So it's kind of like getting shredded, but it's BT Shreds with 2 Z's at the end on Instagram, TikTok, TikTok. On Facebook, it's Brandon Mizell. Yeah, it's like my main platforms, but I actually just started only posting on TikTok and Instagram. So I'm mainly on Instagram.
See, man, appreciate you hopping on, and I can't wait to see how much more success you achieve this year.
It's gonna be sick, man. I'm excited.